Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you want to see where Russia is heading tomorrow, you can't ignore the Z community today. The Vayenkory, or the war reporters, loud, messy, and often first, telegraph the next turn before TV does. Tonight I am opening their channels for you and getting inside their heads. The wins they brag about, the failures they panic over, and what it all signals for the Russians and for all of us. This is the Z Review, the regular segment of Inside Russia, and today, among other things, there will be a little bit of China. Let's dive in. Howdy, howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will not find any BS, lies, propaganda in this channel. You will find instead truth, common sense, and logic, and some emotions too, because I am a human being after all. As usual, before I start, in case you are the first time here at the Z Review, who are the Z reporters, Vayenkory, and why do I find their voices so important? Well, Vayenkory, from военные корреспонденты, or literally military correspondents, war correspondents, are a loose network of pro-Kremlin, pro-war bloggers and reporters. They publish frontline footage, maps, unit gossip, commentaries, often faster than state TV does. While openly nationalist and biased, they can act as an early warning system for shifts in moods inside Russia's pro-war camp, sometimes even criticizing the Ministry of Defense and exposing failures the official media downplays. And sometimes they even criticize the one and only in Russia, the Tsar. You're gonna see that today, and boy, that's interesting. You know, I made it the very last report, so make sure you stick to watch until the end. Without further ado, let's see what Zbloggers had to say this past week. I'll start with Осведомитель, the snitch. The company Airbus published a satellite image of the aftermath of Ukrainian kamikaze drone strikes on what is claimed to be the KGB building in the Republic of Crimea at the end of August. More interesting than the hits on the buildings, created a huge crater. Presumably, this is the impact of the British Emirati missile called FP5 or Millennium, also known as Flamingo. The diameter of the crater draws attention, as the armed forces of Ukraine have few weapons capable of leaving such a hole in the ground. Recall that the FP5 is reported to contain a ton of explosive material. It is also worth noting the significant shortfall of the British missile, about 180 meters, which hints at extremely poor accuracy. The long flight range, comparable to FAB 1500 warhead, as well as the SEP of the unguided projectile, makes the Flamingo an extremely dangerous weapon for our lands. It can be assumed that the enemy will compensate for low accuracy with a big number of single-use launches. Now, this is a Viancore channel, a Telegram channel with quite a few subscribers. As you see, it's got 80,000 subscribers. Now this information is fresh from the oven, just a few days old. There has been much talk of Flamingo missile lately, and this is the very first time I heard of the actual use of a missile of a Flamingo in Russia. I have a feeling things are going to get interesting because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these kind of rockets, missiles have been transferred or in the process of transferring to Ukraine. Large holes in the ground, huh? Well, guess what? Viancore are very concerned. Now, let's jump to another Viancore. The Telegram channel Viancore, the Southern Front. That's, a decent-sized channel with around 20,000 subscribers. And by the way, you can see in the right upper corner, I give you the number of subscribers and I give you the Telegram's ID, so you can find and double check it in the Telegram yourself. Here on the screens, I merely quote Viancore. This particular post from Viancore, the Southern Front, Южный Front, caught my attention, and it's called The Time of Consequences. And it's actually a very unusual post and very unusual thought, because usually Viancore don't think that deep. But this one is right on. I often think about what will happen after the special military operation. By the way, that's how in Russia they're still calling the war. SVO, or the special military operation. So I often think of what will happen after the special military operation. We will all return home, try to get back to a normal life. Some will succeed, some will not. But sooner or later, we will return. And when we return, we will once again be simple people, equal to each other. We will not be afraid of being killed. We will not fear a stray bullet while taking care of our needs. We will be safe again, all of us, or almost all. Many decisions currently made at the front are controversial. There are many facts of violations, to put it mildly, of the norms of treatment of military personnel by other military personnel. And the Viancore is talking about Russians treating Russians, not the Ukrainians. It's of their own kind. Regardless of the form of subordination they have to each other. These norms are often violated in the name of the victory, because in wartime, this is permissible. The times are hard, but there are also violations of norms when they are broken for personal purposes, to gain personal benefits, or to satisfy vile motives of any kind of the commanders. And one day, when we all return, the time of consequences will come. It will definitely come, and someone coming home will constantly look around. Someone will prepare for the worst at every rustle or suspicious passerby, living in constant stress and fear from the understanding that consequences can come at any moment. At any second, the one against whom the norms were violated will appear. The wretched people will fear justice. Do not lose your humanity, colleagues. Do not destroy your soul and the souls of those who are in the same boat with you. Because one day, someone overwhelmed by an obsessive idea of revenge may come and bring consequences. Now, Vaillancourt makes a couple mistakes here. He says we will all return home one day. No, not all will return home. There are hundreds of thousands. We don't know how many exactly, but it's safe to say that hundreds of thousands who will never return home because they're dead. They are in Ukrainian land for the reasons unknown. And then there will be many others. So not all will return home. And then the second mistake Vaillancourt makes, he says that the norms of conducting themselves, the norms of treatment of military personnel by other military personnel, regardless of the form of subordination they have to each other, are often violated in the name of victory. Because in wartime, that is permissible. No. This is army, and a normal army, in norms, it's not permissible to break the norms, rules, and the laws of the army. This is why army is army, okay? This tells us volumes of what's going on the front lines because we don't really know, but here and there, Vaillancourt kind of give us glimpses, and this is one of the glimpses. This is important. Imagine Vaillancourt, pro-Kremlin guy, tells us with 20,000 people following him, okay? Because he's definitely allowed to say things. He's part of the propaganda. He tells us that norms in the army are broken because it's permissible in time of war. No, it's not. Imagine he tells us what he's not supposed to, right? Imagine what really is going on at the front lines. It's quite unbelievable. And then this Telegram post and this idea is about the time of consequences. He really focuses on this norms and rules are that are broken in the name of the victory, not just in the name of the victory, but in the name of exploiting of some Russians by other Russians in the army, okay, for enrichment of some Russians, perhaps for pleasure of some Russians. And he says, well, that is not permissible. And he says that those who do that, they will have to pay consequences. Basically, those who are treated unfairly would come back one day. That's what he says. It's about revenge. Very odd. Very odd, okay? Because I'm thinking, what is Russia doing to Ukraine? What hasn't been doing for the past 3.5 years? I think that's where the consequences will have to come from. Then that time of consequences for Russian officers, commanders who torture, frame soldiers, who mistreat them in any way, that's peanuts compared to what it's coming in terms of as a reaction from the world and from Ukraine to those Russians who fought in this war. Anyway, I found this post very interesting. The time of consequences. The next comes from Vaillancourt. Ria Katyusha. Okay. Ria Katyusha is a very large and unknown Vayncore Telegram channel. The address is right there, Ria Katyusha. You can look it up on Telegram. It has 71,000 subscribers, and it's a fairly known Vayncore, okay? Definitely an integral part of Russian propaganda. And let's see what Ria Katyusha has to say. Senator Dmitry Kuznetsov, the member of the Parliament's Committee on International Affairs, reported that the BRICS countries are developing a list of common traditional values. It will be presented at the Traditional Values Association Forum on September 15th, 16th, and 17th at the National Congress of Brazil. And this news does not please us at all. As is known, marriages of homosexuals are allowed in Brazil. Is this, also a common value with Russia? After all, if anyone has forgotten, according to our Constitution, Clause 4 of the Article 15, international treaties have higher legal force than domestic legislation. In particular, Decree number 809 on the protection of traditional Russian spiritual and moral values, as well as laws banning the propaganda of sodomy, and the Supreme Court decision banning and recognizing the movement of sexual perverts as an extremist organization. And if so, voila! The unified BRICS values open Pandora's box. How many times have we said, Russia is a unique Russian Orthodox civilization, and there is no need to try to conform to some external partners and situational allies? When will our authorities finally understand this? Whoa, just whoa. This is a mountain of information. Look, Ria Katyusha, this Vayncore Ria Katyusha, questions the leadership. When will our authorities finally understand this? Wait a second. I mean, I'm just trying to apply logic here. It means that for 3.5 years, our authorities of the highest level, they haven't really understood what was going on. Holy moly! Can you imagine that? For 3.5 years, they've been waging the war in Ukraine. They've been doing these terrible things to Russians, and they don't understand that there is no need to try to conform to some external partners and situational analyze. Wait a second, we're talking about BRICS. That's the second blow to the authorities. The BRICS countries. She's calling the BRICS countries situational allies. Brazil, Iran. What? These are the best friends of Russia. These are brothers, sisters, whatever. Iran's been supplying weapons. Iran's been lifeline for Russia, for Russian government, for Russian victory in Ukraine, and so forth. And the Vayncore Katyusha is calling those just situational allies, and we shouldn't conform to their values. What the hell is going on? 71,000 subscribers. That's a healthy audience in Russia. Ria Katyusha for you. And then there's another Vayncore, Говорит Topaz. It continues the very same topic. That topic resonates with Russian Z people, with Russian propagandists, I continue. The list, it means the list of traditional values, or common values in the BRIC countries. The list will be presented at the forum on September 15th, 16th, and 17th of the National Congress of Brazil. The Russian Parliament or State Duma reported. You should, of course, show as the least first. After all, there is the country like Iran in the BRICS where polygamy is among the traditional values, for example. Moreover, there are even more interesting traditional values there, as in Egypt, Indonesia, and India. Also, Pakistan has applied to join the BRICS. And Brazil is also a bunch of, kind of traditional value. In general, traditional values differ among cultures. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Who would have thought that Russia really should steer away from Iran? Who would have thought? Yeah, they have polygamy and it's official. Who would have thought? No one thought about that, right? The best friends, the closest allies, signed strategical pact of friendship and cooperation, Who would have thought? Well, I thought of that. Others have thought too, but no one thought among Russian government in Russian Z community. You know what? It's a very interesting situation. And by the way, that what I just read you came from Военкор говорит топаз. That's 140,000 subscribers, by the way. Before I start my crazy news updates every Friday, I say one phrase always. There is no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. If you watch the Friday news updates regularly, you know that by heart. Ria Katyusha and Говорит Tapas just confirmed that I am right. It is typical for Russian state to say something and do completely opposite. This is absurdity. This is craziness, okay? There is no such absurdity in Russia that could not be realized these days. Well, I'm glad that Военкоры at least start asking questions that show the absurdity of current situation in Russia, of current reality. I personally like it. Cheers to that. It's not about values, really. Traditional values, non-traditional values. I don't even know what it is. Values are values, okay? Russian values, that's a mystery. I don't know what Russian values are. And I'm Russian. But all that talk is not about values. All that values are just excuse for Putin and for the Russian elite. Just excuse. It's really about power. And they'll use anything as excuse. And values just comes very, very, very conveniently. Siding with Iran. Siding with Brazil. Brazil is a normal country as far as I understand. Brazil is fine. But yes, homosexual marriages are allowed. And Russia is kind of going along with that, accepting as one of the values of the BRIC countries. When in Russia, you go to prison just mentioning homosexual marriages. Okay? Incredible. There's no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia these days. Now, I would like to present you Военкор Verum Regnum. That's a good size Военкор, 78,000 subscribers. Oop, jumped over. And I read a post. It's called "The Amazing is Nearby." Close, but it is forbidden. Today, a list of important internet services appeared, which will be available during the mobile internet operation restrictions, which already barely work anyway. Now, Before I go any further, I gotta tell you what's going on, because some of you might not even understand what I'm talking about. Well, actually, Vinecore is talking about. Right now, mobile internet, the kind of internet you use on your telephone, LTE, 5G, 4G, in Russia, works very unreliably. In most of the country, there are outages every single day. Official reason for outages given safety to increase safety and security of people, because there are hundreds of Ukrainian drones fly to Russia and hit different targets, different facilities. Hundreds, and there's nothing Russians can do about that. So the best thing they could come up with was to make outages, blackouts of mobile communication, because they believe that Ukrainian drones use mobile networks to somehow guide themselves, which is not true, because you know what? They shut down internet and it's complete blackout, and Ukrainian drones still fly and still hit factories, oil refineries, and so forth. So this is absolutely bogus reason. But the Russian state likes the fact that it can control people greatly by shutting down their mobile internet. And mobile providers also like that a lot, because they shut down mobile internet and they don't incur any costs, or at least lower costs, but people pay them as much as if the internet was readily available, And mobile operators refuse to lower pay for not providing services, because they're saying it's force majeure, it's not our fault, okay? So back to the topic of this Vinecore's post. Today, the list of important internet services appeared, which will be available during the mobile internet operation restrictions. Basically, now they're saying that every time that there's a blackout, certain internet services will be available. Doesn't make any sense, but there's no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia. So I continue, which already barely work anyway, meaning internet service. That is, we're practically restricted everywhere except the capitals, and the capitals meaning Moscow and the St. Petersburg. Let's not even discuss how much the mobile internet operation restrictions help in the fight against enemy drone raids. That's a very sarcastic saying. It doesn't help, as I said before. From our unintelligent perspective, they help little, because debris keeps falling, people keep dying and getting injured, refineries keep burning, and fuel prices keep rising. That's sarcasm of the hundredths level. Let's just note that apparently the decision to shut down the internet, not because of enemy drones, but for other reasons, has been made. Otherwise, why compile such a list? And since that is the case, we, the citizens, must also prepare for it, and first understand the logic behind compiling this list, which is astonishing, at least to us. Why? Firstly, because the authorities have finally openly taken the well-known path exhaustively described by the high-ranking official and great connoisseur of the Russian authorities, Mikhail Saltykov-Shchedrin, old Russian author that wrote 100 years ago. I quote, "The Russian government must keep its people in a state of constant amazement." Now I'll continue reading, there's too much text about that. Secondly, because it provides almost exclusive data to understand how our dear authorities in every sense understand our people. And the authorities understand our people just as they did in the times of Mikhail Saltykov-Shchedrin over 100 years ago, the foremost expert on laws of Russian bureaucracy and aspiration of the Russian deep state. Thinking is not allowed. A good son of the motherland is obliged to engage in established physical exercise and then to saturate, digest, and vomit. Anyone who attempts to think will be considered an accomplice, a coverer, and a participant in villainous plots. Anyone can see this for themselves just by looking at the list. It includes the largest marketplaces such as Wildberries, Russian equivalent of Ozon, the largest advertising platforms like VK, Russian equivalent of Facebook, the largest mobile operators ensuring popularity, communication control like Beeline, MTS, Russian equivalent of Sprint, AT&T, the largest content dumps like RooTube and Zen, monopolists Gosuslugi and Yandex. The Gosuslugi is the government's electronic platform for providing various services, and Yandex, well, you know what Yandex is. Government and presidential administration websites, apparently out of respect because there is no other reason, and the remote electronic voting platform. So they're saying the drones from Ukraine flying, to make everyone safe, we will shut down internet. But when we shut down internet, drones continue flying and they continue hitting targets. But at the same time, some services will be available during those shutdowns. I see no logic whatsoever. Okay, this Russian logic. If you want shut down everything, right? To disturb the drones. No. Some services will still be available. And of course, it's state-run services. Let me continue, Vainkur. So, dear compatriots, we are only supposed to consume, and in return, we must vote correctly. Ads will be shown on all allocated platforms, which will be available during the blackouts. That's all. We must not learn, we must not read, we must not have access to museums, theaters, and libraries, to scientific journals. What journals? We must not even know the news. Neither TASS or RIA Novosti are on the list. They won't be available. And we must not have the opportunity to consult doctors, lawyers, etc. And of course, we must not, under any circumstances, play computer games, except for those allowed by Russian equivalent of Google called Yandex. Of course, we know the list will be supplemented. Everyone who can run to the decision-making bodies will run and beg, plead, or buy their way into the list. But it still won't be everyone. And most importantly, it will not be the same about consumption to saturate, digest, and vomit. And this is the new wonderful reality. And we also have a question. What does Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, Antitrust Agency, think about all of this? However, it doesn't matter. Everything is clear already anyway. Whoa, that was a very strong post from Vainkur. This one. The amazing is nearby, but is forbidden. From Vainkur Verum Regnum. 78,000 subscribers. Now, for 3.5 years, they have been trying to assist, they have been assisting Vladimir Putin and his gang, his clique, to build a digital gulag. And this is what they're getting at right now. For 3.5 years, Vayenkory, an integral part of Russian propaganda, right in the heart of Russian propaganda, have been helping successfully to brainwash Russian people to build exactly this system that Russian state now uses. But now, this system, the state starts using it against Vayenkory. And all of a sudden, they're getting the taste of it. And then they don't like it. All of a sudden, they are on the other side. They're still Vayenkory. They're still, supported by the KGB and by the propaganda and all of that. They're still part. But the services, all of a sudden, they don't work. They don't have access to internet. And what's going on? And they don't like it. They find themselves in the position of regular Russian people. And they don't like it. It's infuriating, This is exactly what they have been trying to build, and they've succeeded doing that. And now they start complaining, oh, how come, what's going on, why we don't have access to the news. Well, that was the whole idea. So not anyone will have access to the news. And that's been executed brilliantly. So shut up and eat it now, the same crap that you have created. The revolution devours its children, and we're seeing it right now. There are other names for this process, of course. Some call it, and I like it too, the spiders in the jar. Boy. There will be one big spider. The rest will be devoured, eaten. Them and their children. Let's go to the next piece of information I find interesting. Vayenkor Alexander Khramov, a very small Vayenkor, very small guy, only 3,000 subscribers. But this past week, he wrote something very, very interesting that resonates with me, that he proves my point of what I've been talking about for the past 2.5 years. Now, check this out. Vayenkor Alexander Khramov. It feels like Moscow has turned into a city of eternal celebration. Wherever you go, you are bound to stumble upon yet another festival. And everything is so colorful, so stylish, and most importantly, it's all free! Have fun, stroll around. The city hall has paid for everything. Just this Saturday, I decided to walk around Gogolevsky Boulevard, that's the very center of Moscow, and there were several areas set up for playing petang. You could also play Gorodki, that's a Russian, historical Russian game, or pickleball. They were easels. Come up, draw, and here are pastel pencils and apron for you, so you don't get dirty, and it's all free. At Pushkin Square, right in the center of Moscow, there's a beautiful installation in the form of a giant school backpack with a plush teddy bear inside. In the 50th anniversary October Park, they built a huge swimming pools where you can ride SUP boards. And also absolutely free, though queues are long. Nearby, they're demonstrating experiments with Tesla coils. Whoosh, whoosh, lightning flashes, robots, somersault, all this commotion. A little further away, a stage with a concert. And there's another stage with a concert. And there's music there too. That's just what I personally saw over the past weekend. A drop in the ocean among Moscow's entertainment. And the City Day hasn't even been celebrated yet. It's coming up. And if you don't open the news feed, it might seem as if we have entered an earthly paradise, as if Russia has entered an era of unprecedented prosperity and well-being, as if everything is great and couldn't be better. Well, sometimes there is such a happy period in person's life, excellent health. Everything is good at work and at home. The mood is great. So why not buy and wear an expensive, beautiful dress? And Moscow has put on such dress. It can afford it. But when you come home from this never-ending celebration, open Telegram and read about fighters who have been hiding in burrows for months, avoiding enemy drones, and about volunteers collecting pennies for LOL for such and such unit, and about Donetsk without water, and about shelling of the border areas. No, Moscow in its festive dress looks like a foolish woman whose children are unfed, whose husband lost a leg at war, whose elderly parents are freezing and wearing rags. But the woman is having fun and dressing up. One word: fool. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. I couldn't have said better myself. Alexander Khramov for you. Vaenkour, pro-Russian, Z-patriot. Thing is, I've been saying it for 3 years now. So many foreigners, so much disinformation in the YouTube, in the news, in the newspapers, on TV. Oh, Russia is fantastic. Oh, come to Russia, enjoy. Look how they living in Russia. They're having a good time. They're celebrating. Yes, that's true. Vaenkour Alexander Khramov, 100% right on. Okay? It's happening in Moscow and to some extent in St. Petersburg. Moscow had a summer of excess. I've never seen anything like that before. Festival upon festival, upon event, upon event, upon event, upon event. Gosh, this weekend right now is the festival of walking in Moscow. For goodness sake, festival of walking. Of course, they're doing it to distract people's attention from the war. But the foreigners who come to Moscow, sometimes unintentionally see all of that. They don't understand what really goes on, and they start spreading fakes and misinformation about how wonderful Russia is. What can I say? Moscow is not Russia. I keep on repeating that. Moscow is not Russia. St. Petersburg is not Russia. You want to go see Russia, get outside Moscow. There aren't any festivals there. There isn't internet. There isn't water. There are bombings from Ukrainian drones. There are plenty of people, young men without legs, without hands, maimed. That's Russia. Don't go and see Moscow. Don't make your opinion of Russia by looking at Moscow. Please don't. You're making a mistake. I salute to Vaenkour Alexander Khramov for that post. Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, we're moving on to the next Vaenkour. Vaenkour Sladkov, 804,000 subscribers. Vaenkour Sladkov, one of the most known Z people with close ties to the Kremlin. And he says something very interesting. I like it. I was at the recording of Zakhar Prilepin's program. That's the most famous Russian Z blogger, Z Vaenkour. Anyway, I was at the recording of Zakhar Prilepin's program today about contemporary cinema on the topic of the special military operation. Both actors and producers participated. They discussed the topic of SVO both on camera and off camera. And very frankly, I don't know this topic was so painful. I won't retell everything here. This is Zakhar's professional field, but I was simply shocked. There are so many around who hate the topic of the special military operation, hating both the participants and supporters. This is not just a fifth column. These are the genuine enemies in the acting communities. In the producing community, among actors in the cultural administrative sphere, there are many who simply do not exchange their personal peace for concerns about their motherland. Guys, those who are on the front lines, we will not abandon you. There are many who know the high price you personally pay for a victory. We're stronger, we fear nothing. Now, this is very interesting. That comes from Vayenkor Sladkov, the industry standard in the community. Unbelievable. I really don't know what to add to that. I'm relieved, a little bit, somewhat relieved. I kind of gives me hope because helpful. It's very helpful. I apologize for this very emotional moment. It's very hopeful information. The hardcore propaganda character, the industry standard Vayenkor Slankov, confirms that there are large amount of Russians who are against the war. It's really good to know. Because, I sit here outside Russia and I'm wired into this big news machine. And I get a lot of information. I know much about Russia, much more than most other people do. But one thing I cannot do is to walk around Moscow, look into people's eyes, see how they look. I can't talk to them. I can't hear the tone of their speech. And it gets very lonely here. I get desperate. I feel like I am in a very few. I am amongst very few people in Russia who actually do not support war. And hearing it from Vayenkor Sladkov is very relieving. Even in Moscow, there are people who risk their freedom, risk their lives, who, behind the curtains, tell their real, true, opposing the war. Please forgive me for being emotional, but this is very relieving. Now, before jumping to yet another piece of information from Azee Vaincore, the person, I would like to take this opportunity and thank you, everyone who is a part of Inside Russia community. Thank you for watching, for liking, for commenting, for subscribing, for interacting in live stream chats. Thank you for your messages, for your prayers, and for your love. I feel it. Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for the coffees you buy me at buymeacoffee.com, Patreon, PayPal. I give you a promise once again. I keep on repeating that, but I will not stop. I give you a promise that despite being demonetized by Google and not earning anything from this channel, I continue my stand against Russian government, against unfairness, against the war, and continue telling you the truth. You have my word on that. I promise it to you. Thank you so very much. Now another Vaincore, a very, very known one, Anastasia Kashivarova, 246,000 subscribers at her Telegram channel. Fighters with hepatitis and HIV will be formed into separate units and will carry out combat tasks in defense. They will also wear distinctive armbands based on the category of their illness. Recently, I wrote about the emerging epidemic of HIV and hepatitis at the front and proposed a solution. The Russian armed forces have started to work on this issue. The army is adopting the experience of Private Army Wagner, where sick fighters served in a separate project unit called Umbrella. Since now, contract soldiers include people with HIV, cancer, hepatitis, tuberculosis, who hide all this by obtaining fake health certificates to receive benefits and money. There are also those diagnosed with hepatitis and other diseases during service. It was decided to form them into special units, separate units. In one of the armies, and I will not name it, a command directive was issued to form a single unit from such servicemen with fitness category B. These fighters will have to wear distinctive armbands. It's really hard to react onto this news. It's full of craziness, okay? That's the best word I have, craziness. What do you think, folks? Well, first of all, Kashivarova brings up an excellent topic. There are epidemics, pandemics, or whatever you call them, as huge explosions of different diseases, including the HIV, growing inside Russian army. And you know what? In Russian media, in the propaganda, no one is talking about that. Kashivarova is the first one who's brought it up, at least from what I see, from what I hear. And I'm very glad she did. Because Russians need to know about that, and the world needs to know about that. That is another crime happening inside Russian army right now. Now, putting these people with HIV into separate battalions, I don't know, it's like putting stars and then putting special armbands around their arms, you know. It's like putting stars in the late 30s in Germany onto the clothing of Jewish people. At least that's how I see it. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments, because to me it kind of seems inhuman. But anyway, everything that Russia is doing in Ukraine is kind of inhuman. So, oh, my head is spinning. This is tough. Now, so many news come out of Russia every single day, and I'd like to remind you that I've come up with what I call Formula 51. Every single day, I select 9 news that I find important and make them available to patrons of Inside Russia at patreon.com. 9 news a day, every day, 6 days a week, 54 news every single week. I feel it helps those who are interested to know what's happening in Russia and with Russia to stay informed, to find information that is important, that matters, and a lot of it cannot be found anywhere in the mainstream media because I have a different approach to news than mainstream media. The account, a Patreon account of Inside Russia, please consider joining. I'm gonna put a link in the description to this video and in a pinned comment. Please consider checking it out. Thank you. The next piece of information is from Vayencourt Shakespeare. Yeah, believe it or not, but this guy with this name. Not big one, just 16,000 subscribers, but still, fairly known. Back to yesterday, and now I'm going to be talking. This is those topics about China I mentioned previously. I'm going to be talking about China. Let me remind you first before jumping to Vayencourt Shakespeare. It's hard for me to say. Vayencourt, Russian propagandists Shakespeare. Please forgive me, wonderful English people. I don't know what to tell you, but yes, Vayencourt Shakespeare. Yeah. Anyway, a very significant event took place last week. Well, this week, really, in China, Tianjin. A summit of Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. The leaders of China, well, obviously, it was organized in China. Also, the leaders of Pakistan, India, Russia, among other countries, North Korea, visited and discussed a lot of topics. Well, I talked about the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement Organization Summit previously in my live streams and in the news report, and this isn't what I'm going to do that now. I'm just reminding you, refreshing your memory what the SEO is. And then this, what I'm going to tell you now, is the reaction of Vayencourt Shakespeare to the whole idea of Russia being part of the SCO. Now, I quote Vayencourt Shakespeare. Back to yesterday. Back to yesterday. Here are everything, meaning Vladimir Putin, once again touchingly told us how good we are and how we were deceived. Vayencourt Shakespeare means this part of the press conference in Tianjin 5 days ago. Putin said, "We withdrew troops from Kyiv because the Europeans asked us to. Now we are going to fight until either you turn our heads away or we turn yours away." Basically, until the end, until death. In this way, Putin justified his intentions to fight to the end, which they kind of have. And I have only one question. Why? Well, it's just why are you saying all of this? And he's asking Putin. And most importantly, to who? Who are you telling it to? Who is your audience? The West? The West gives a fudge about us. The West wants to rob and kill us. The East? So in the East, they don't respect suckers. And we actually called, ourselves suckers again. Your own people, you aim it to your own people. Funny, very funny. He has very different feelings after each other. After such statement, yes, a mixture of disgust, depression, and hatred. So why? What the fudge? In this process, they, and by they he means, it's very odd post actually, but they, he means the leadership and Putin. They don't just live in a warm bath. They have dived and into it, and their heads are covered, and they're breathing through a tube. That's the horror of it, friends. You know, I think that Vayncourt Shakespeare is right on. I think that he is trying to make sense, some kind of sense, of this reality that doesn't make any sense. There is no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia. And this is when you try to apply logic on modern day Russia from the point of view of the state, it doesn't work. And then today I'm showing it to you again and again and again. And Vayncourt, they also try to apply logic, and they get appalled. They explode. Okay, but if you consider that all that the Russian state is doing, all Russian leaders doing, all the talk, all the actions, it's just a game. The goal is one: to hang on to power for as long as possible. Putin hangs on to his power because he has the absolute power in his hands. He is on the very top. There is no one above him on this earth in Russia. Just God, okay? He knows that the only way for him is to go down. People who are around him, who depend on him, they also know that. They also know as soon as he goes down, they go down with him. Okay, so there is a very intense power struggle going on, and Putin is doing a very good job hanging on to his power. And this is what this press conference was about. It wasn't about to show that Russia is strong, independent, and all of that. It was about to get its place with China, to maneuver around China, the United States, to say what needed to be said, with no meaning whatsoever. And Vayncourt Shakespeare trying to get meaning in what has no meaning, okay? And then he's posting very, very, very emotional information. And you know what? I give you some more from... And by the way, Vayncourt Shakespeare is very bold, okay? He's asking questions. He's asking Putin himself, what the fudge? I have not heard of any Vayncourt, any official asking Putin what the fudge. And I didn't mean fudge, okay? Something else. I think you'll understand what it is. So now, look at this. The very same from Vayncourt Shakespeare. Very same kind of statement continues. Footage from a parade in Beijing seems to hint Great China declares itself as the new center of power. And I'm going to show you the footage right now, just for a little bit, so you understand, in case you missed that big parade in Beijing. This is what this Vayncourt is talking about. It's spoken in Russian with very broken Russian accent by a Chinese woman. And the guy is right. The guy is absolutely right. He says about the footage, and I'll repeat. The footage from the parade in Beijing seems to hint Great China declares itself as a new center of power. Look who is in the center. Look who is around him. At the left-hand side, Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Right-hand side, Vladimir Putin. Look who's behind him, Modi and others. Around him, he is surrounded by world leaders. Not the Western leaders, but, the leaders who live outside the Western sphere of influence. Look at the symbolism. Look how he walks. Look where he looks. This scene is full of symbolism. He sets the pace. He sets the tone. He's in the center. Everyone waits for him. Everyone applauds to him. And mighty, great, big, huge army, the Chinese army, salutes him, takes orders from him. Look at the world leaders. Look at the entourage. Look how everything is portrayed. It's not about Putin. It's not about Kim. It's about Z. So much symbolism. This needs no commentary. And there goes he, the great leader, the master of the world, Xi Jinping. Well, at least that's what it's portrayed of. Not my opinion, but that's what he's being portrayed as. Look at the army, look at the people, look at Tiananmen Square. And it's also very symbolic. If you remember, Tiananmen Square was the symbol of freedom in China. Remember? Tanks rolled over students. Students were standing up for freedom. And now Tiananmen Square is being served as the showcase of power of a great dictator. And then this is the military parade. The parade is very long. I have 5 minutes footage. I'm not going to show it to you, but basically Z just rolls and rides and rides in his car forever, looking at the thousands, tens of thousands of soldiers, miles and miles. Now, you might have seen this footage because it's been shown all over in the mainstream media as well. But there's something that everyone is missing. And then, of course, there's hardware and missiles and nuclear missiles. Now, this is a little off topic, but this everyone missed this. I mean, obviously, China has big army. There are experts who are arguing about whether it's a strong army or just a facade, a Potemkin village. I don't know. But one thing, let's compare this parade to the parade that happened on May 9th in Red Square. And that parade was the victory, the end of the Great Patriotic War. the V-Day, the May celebration, when Germany capitulated to Soviet Union. Putin invited different countries. Putin allowed the North Koreans, the Vietnamese, the troops from Myanmar and from Africa march in the Red Square in front of everyone. It wasn't just the Russian army. Can't say it was a coalition, but there was a few armies. Look at this parade. China only. I think that's also a lot of symbolism here. And everyone missed that. China only. There's no one but China. China is number one. And Vayencourt continues. Vayencourt Shakespeare is absolutely right. Footage from this parade in Beijing seems to hint Great China declares itself as the new center of power. And it accepts vassals. And yes, guys, it all staged like an oath. Yes, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. It is staged like an oath. And then they are vassals against him, walking around the master. Good guy. A homage, that's what it's called. And it is bought, among others, by Moscow. Symbolically. Whether someone likes it or not, should this embarrass us? No. Because there's no reason. First, guys, we lost the status of global alpha ourselves. And in the new world, we need to be vassals of Great China just to survive. Russia is ridiculous. Don't like it? No, I guess I don't need to tell you where to shove your pride, especially since there's a second reason. And it is that for Great China itself, being our vassal was by no means scary, and for a long time, although by the standards of the Celestial Empire itself, not really, because it was necessary. They needed time to recover and also the opportunity to physically survive, and it survived. And it became great again. So we also need to focus again. We can only do this in the shadow of China. Well, the first part of the message is right on. The second part of the message is, it's kind of bogus. But the first is, he's right on. Russia has become the vassal state of China. And whether we like it or not, whether Russians like it or not, and if they don't like it, they can take their opinion and shove it up their throats. And I absolutely agree with Vayencourt Shakespeare. He's right on. Basically, the message from Shakespeare and some other Z-patriots, well, so-called quasi-patriots, Z-bloggers, we are kissing China's boot. And they're absolutely right. This is kissing China's boot. Right here. The North Korea has been kissing Chinese boot for a long time. It's their normal state. They're surviving only because of China, but Russia, this is a novelty. This hasn't happened before. Wow. Vayencourt Shakespeare has very strong direct criticism of Vladimir Putin. Well, he's right. You can't argue with Shakespeare on most of his points. And he is bluntly telling Putin, what the fudge? And I didn't mean fudge. Good luck to you, Vayencourt Shakespeare. You don't have that many subscribers. You don't have much weight. in the media, in Russian propaganda, but you certainly do have courage. We will miss you. Friends, I hope you found this message interesting and informative. I believe it is important to look into the minds of Z people regularly. I'll be doing these reports weekly now, on one of the days every single week. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for giving me a chance to deliver you this message. Carthago delenda est.